Hey, this is Dr. Charity from The Mo Better Life with another video for you. Today we are doing a plant-based Thanksgiving dinner. So today we're going to be showing you how to make a mushroom Wellington. We're going to show you how to make some plant-based cauliflower mac and cheese. And we're going to show you how to make a blueberry galette and an apple galette. Let's get started. So I'm going to start off by pricking the leaves from the rosemary leaf and chop them up finely. I'm just taking the leaves off. Two of these sprigs here. This is thyme. I'm just picking out the sprigs for that. More thyme leaves that's gonna go in the sauteed mushrooms. Thyme and rosemary. All right, so the first things we're gonna do is we're going to get the mushrooms, the big portobello mushrooms, we're gonna get those cooking in the oven. Okay, we're gonna get them seasoned. I'm gonna get them starting to cook. These are our big portobello mushrooms here. So the top side down, cap side up. I'm gonna try to make 2 Wellingtons, which is kind of why I have 7. So 4 in one, 3 in the other. So a big one and a small. And we're just gonna season all of them with some of these herbs. The rosemary and thyme mixture that I chopped together. You can also do this on the stove if you don't have an oven or don't like to use the oven. You're gonna get some garlic. You can just either just buy the cloves and chop it, or you can just get it already minced. So we're just gonna sprinkle some of that there. Sprinkle some of that there. All right, this is olive oil it's combined with sunflower oil, but olive oil will just be fine. Not too much. All right, and then you're just gonna rub that in. Then you're gonna season it with some all-purpose seasoning, so you can have some flavor. Alrighty, and then it goes into the oven for 15 minutes. So basically it's gonna cook out the moisture. So you're gonna see a lot of the moisture come out of it after that. Preheated at 400 degrees. And so we're gonna cook this at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. Get all that moisture out. Now we're going to cook the contents of the Wellington. So the mushroom Wellington is composed of the larger mushrooms surrounded by other mushrooms and other seasonings that surround the guts of the Wellington. So now we're cooking the surrounding part right now. We're gonna start off with some nice red onion. Hold on, looking a little questionable. Well, if they're fresh, they usually are fine, but sometimes you get a bad red onion. You just check your produce. Make sure it's not rotten on the inside. Just putting the chopped red onions into a non-stick pan. Now I'm gonna chop these mushrooms here so that they also can cook together with the onion. So I got 1 pack of baby bella mushrooms and then 1 pack of shiitake mushrooms, and I washed it before I started chopping it here. For the shiitake mushrooms, you want to cut off some of the stem here because it can be very rough. So I sometimes will cut some of that stem off of the shiitake mushrooms. You know, the typical Wellington is a beef Wellington, so it has like a big chunk of beef in there, but we're plant-based. So instead of that, we still want something that's delicious and something that's very show-stopping, and to be in the middle, mushroom fits the bill. Mushroom's often a nice replacement for meats, just because it has a very savory flavor and pretty delicious. It's good to mix types of mushrooms like I've done with the shiitake and the baby bella, because different mushrooms have different flavor. You also get a little bit different textures as well. So now you're just putting your chopped mushrooms into your pan so it can cook along with the onions. You want to cook the contents of the Wellington because you don't want wet, soggy pastry. So you got to cook the moisture out of the insides first. Gonna add this a little later after the mushroom is cooked down a little bit. All right, let's get this on the stove. We're gonna start this on high heat. We're gonna put a 1/3 cup of water in there just to get it good cooking. No oil needed here. You're gonna see a lot of moisture getting released from the mushrooms, and it'll cook in that. Add a little bit of pepper, maybe about a teaspoon, and then a little bit of seasoning salt. All right, let's let that cook. So this is the mushrooms Wellington. Still quite a bit of moisture coming out of it. I'm gonna let it go for about 5 more minutes. Give this a little mix. See that moisture coming out? So it's gonna cook down, it's gonna get smaller as it cooks down. Now I'm going to blend some of the rest of the contents of the Wellington right now. We're gonna add some chestnuts into the Wellington. Add a little bit of nutty flavor and texture as well. They're just gonna put the whole pack in there. We want something that has a little bit of give when you bite into it. So right here, we have some walnuts, and that also is gonna add some nice omega-3s in there. So you're gonna get some nice nutrients. And then walnut just gives a lot of good texture as well for the Wellington. It kind of makes it a little bit, gives it more bite. And of course, gives you some protein. So you're gonna put about 5 ounces of walnuts. To amp up the protein content, we're also gonna add some lentils to this. Lentils is an excellent source of protein, and so since we're not eating a turkey, doesn't mean we don't get protein in this meal. So lentils also adds good texture and protein. So I'm just gonna rinse this out. You can cook lentils from scratch, but they also sell canned lentils. So you don't have to cook the lentils from scratch. I don't want too much moisture to be in this Wellington. So I'm trying to rinse out any extra moisture from the bean juice, and letting that strain out. So I gave a little bit of tap of the residual garlic that was left in there. This was probably about a teaspoon of garlic. Let's give this some pulse in the food processor. And then we're also gonna add a little bit of bread, 2 slices of bread. This sounds like it's serious. So we're gonna turn the heat down a little bit so they can keep going, but it doesn't stick to the pan. But you see the moisture's coming out. Everything's starting to look good here. Turn that off. So now I'm also going to turn this off too, because the moisture is pretty much out of it. So I'm going to let the residual heat there finish cooking it. And then we're going to take this out. Some of that moisture has come out. I'm just going to let that drip out and let it rest over here. Let it cool down. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over so that the liquid can drip out of it. All right, so we're gonna let this rest and cool down. Now we're gonna food process or blend the lentils and the chestnuts mixture and the walnuts. Not too much. And we're also gonna add the bread there. Looks like it needs to go a little bit more, but we're gonna add the bread into it. You can use a whole grain bread. This is a sourdough bread that we're using here. Sourdough bread adds some flavor. The nice thing is that bread helps soak up the extra moisture in the Wellington. It also helps keep the Wellington together. So it looks like we need to mix it so that everything can get blended properly. So let's see if we can give it a little turn. See how not everything's getting blended, so you need to move some stuff around. The other thing you could do is you could break this up into 2 parts. But if you don't want to do that, just give it a little turn. So you got your little walnut chestnut mix here. Now everything's mixed down. Just give it another turn. Very good. So that looks pretty good. We're gonna mix this all together and add a little bit of seasoning to it and give it a taste. Make sure that the contents taste very good. Go ahead and put this back on. Put that on low. All right, so now we get all the flavors to come together. We taste it, make sure we like it. This is some balsamic vinegar here. And put a 1/3 cup of that. You can add a little bit of sweetness by adding a tablespoon of something sweet. This is a sweetener. You can add brown sugar or maple syrup here. I'm just adding some agave to this. Mix all these flavors together, and then you're gonna make sure it's enough pepper and salt is in there. I like things to be a little bit on the spicier side, so we're gonna give this a taste and we're gonna see what it needs to taste delicious. So let's see what this is tasting like. Need some mushroom seasoning. This is the bag of the mushroom seasoning. So it's almost like a bouillon in a way. This is 1 tablespoon. And then we need something spicy. I'm gonna put about half a teaspoon of cayenne just so we can get some spice in there. Let's mix that. Let's turn the heat down because it's starting to stick to the bottom.
Beloved, what's up? How you doing?
All right, let's give it a taste. Maybe need a little bit of seasoning salt. Still a little bland, but it's almost there. So I'll probably put a teaspoon of seasoning salt. We should be good. We don't want it to be too salty. That should do it. All right, I'm gonna turn this down, turn it off, and I'm gonna let this cool down. So we have our herbs here, the remaining herbs, and we're just gonna put that with the rest. Let's put this in here so it can cool down a little faster. So get it off the stove. So you see, you want it to be kind of a mush so that it can stick together once you put it into the middle of the Wellington. You'll see. So we're gonna let that cool down along with that. This is basically makes the center of the Wellington. I'm gonna move on to the next recipe, and I'm gonna allow this to cool down. So this is the Silky Mat that we use to cook the mushrooms that are going to the Mushroom Wellington. Just showing you how easy it is to clean after you've used it. All right, so let's work on the vegan mac and cheese, vegan cauliflower mac and cheese. We're gonna start off by bringing the pasta to a boil and then make our cheese sauce along the way. So we're gonna fill this up with water, about up into the pot holder line. That's usually where I stop. High heat. Gonna salt the pasta water. At least about a little over a tablespoon. Then let that come to a boil. When that comes to a boil, then we put the pasta. We're cooking for a little bit more people, so we're using 2, but most of the time if you're cooking for yourself, 1 package is enough. All right, just gonna cut the cauliflower. So make sure you wash your cauliflower before you start. I've already washed this. Just 1 head of cauliflower. You just cut that middle part out. And so you're cutting it into kind of bite-sized pieces. That's basically the goal of this. So you're cutting the head into bite-sized pieces. I usually cut it from the bottom so that you don't have a lot of cauliflower rice everywhere. So just cutting that into bite-sized. You see, key is really just cutting it from the bottom. It stays together better. It stays on the stem. So that's good enough. So it'll fit on your fork, easy to eat. There's that. And then this is the chopped broccoli. It's already chopped. So we're putting some broccoli in there as well to add a little bit more fiber to your mac and cheese. I like add quite a bit of vegetables to that when I can, so I'll just go ahead and put that right in there. So now we're gonna make our cheese sauce. I'm just gonna wash off some of this butternut squash. I'm gonna use it in my cheese sauce. Store-bought, but I always want to rinse stuff you can get from the store. This is just another way of adding some nutrients to the mix. All right, I'm just gonna boil some water so I can soften the butternut squash. This pot is to cook the pasta. This pot is to cook the butternut squash to soften it up. And then this is to cook the cheese sauce that everything else will go into. I'm just opening up the boxes of pasta. All right. So this cooks for 11 minutes. That should be done in 11 minutes. All right. So then, now the clock starts. This mac and cheese really should be ready in about 15 minutes, starting from now. You can use whatever type of plant-based milk you like. I use almond milk, unsweetened, original, unsweetened. Please don't use vanilla. Just unsweetened, regular, 30-calorie almond milk. Turn your stove on, because you're gonna be melting the cheese now. The vegan cheese, not real cheese. So you got a cup of milk in there. So we have 3 plant-based cheeses that we're gonna be working with today. So this is cheese number 1. It's a cashew-based cheese, Miyokos. I like the smoked English because it gives a smoky flavor. You could also just, if you don't have access to these cheeses, you could also just get some cashews, soak them for about 30 minutes and put them in a blender. Then this is another type of plant-based cheese that is a little lighter but creamier. And so I'm using these 2 as my main bases. They're both cashew-based. And then as a melty kind of a topper, we're using some mozzarella that will go over the top when it's time to melt. So we're using these 3 cheeses. Half of the block of cheese there. It kind of reminds me of like a smoked Gouda. So I'm cutting it into it so that it can melt faster. But like I said, if you wanted to just put some cashews into a blender, you could do that as well. Cheese number 2, I'm gonna put half of that in there as well. Softer cheese. It's more melty, but it gives it like more of a creamy taste. About half of the pack. The key here is using a cashew-based cheese. The brand doesn't really matter as much. However, if you do want a smoky flavor, I do suggest, if you like smoked Gouda or smoked cheeses, I do recommend seeing if you can try to get that. So now we're just trying to melt down this cheese here. We're trying to make a cheese sauce, so you know the pasta is gonna go into this. And then the butternut squash also is going to as well. Putting it on medium heat now because I don't want the cheese to burn. So you want to add a bit of seasoning here. So you want to add some smoked paprika that adds to the smokiness of the cheese. So I would say about a little teaspoon in there. I also like to add some spice. I like my mac and cheese to have a little bit of spice to it, so I do add some cayenne pepper, about half a teaspoon. And it kind of gives it that more of a yellow color. So you can add your butternut squash to the boiling water because you want that to soften up before you blend it. So let that boil. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more milk here so that it can melt a little bit easier. I added another half cup of milk so that things, like I said, I don't want things to burn. I don't want the cheese to burn. I want it to be like a cheese sauce, not just like a chunky cheese. So I added about half a cup of milk there. Vegan cheese, you gotta help it along a little bit. Cheese like the smoked Miyokos is a little bit of a harder cheese, so you gotta help it out a little bit by like smushing it. But you see it's turning into a nice cheese sauce there. I don't usually use butter in my vegan mac and cheese. You know, the cheeses themselves, you know, cashew-based cheese already has some healthy fats there. You know, has enough fat in it, so you don't need to add butter. If you want to, you can. If you want it to be more, I guess, decadent, but it doesn't really need it because you have fat from the cashews, some good fats. Let's give this a little stir, make sure things are still going. So this is almost done. Turn this heat down a little bit more. Like I said, you don't want your cheese to burn, so you got to keep an eye on it. Don't walk away from it. The other thing you'll do is add a little bit of pasta water to the mix. So I'm adding about a cup of pasta water. It's like an emulsifier. It kind of helps bring things together because it has starch from the pasta, from cooking the pasta. So pasta water is a good addition to any kind of like pasta dish. So you always try to reserve some pasta water to help bring things together better. And it also helps, you know, make a better sauce. So you see that? So now it's more saucy. Cheese is melting easier. So you always want to try to reserve some pasta water in your pasta dishes, including mac and cheese. So that took about, I would say about less than 10 minutes. So the cheese sauce comes together in about 10 minutes. That's why I usually tend to start the cheese sauce like when the pasta starts boiling, because they usually will cook in around the same time. All right, so the pasta is done cooking. You don't want to waste cheese. No cheese left behind. You want to taste it though. It's gonna need some salt, because we haven't added any salt. Definitely need some more pepper. So I'll add another half a teaspoon of that. I like some spice. All right, so let us drain our pasta. So before I pour out the water, I'm gonna set aside another cup of pasta water here, in case I need it, to help make it a little bit more watery. You don't wanna overcook your pasta or it's gonna taste disgusting. So that's that. Take that out. You know, yeah, pasta's done. Another strainer, you're straining the water out before you blend. About half a cup of water. So that's still blended nicely. So now we're gonna pour this into here. And like I said, this just adds some additional creaminess. It adds some additional nutrients into your mix. Actually, I'm gonna rinse some of this residual off with milk, just so I'm not leaving too much behind. So I'm just pouring a little bit in there. I'm just gonna shake it. You see that? Got a little bit of residual out of it. That is the cheese sauce that we have going on here. Let's give this a little taste before we add the pasta and the vegetables. All right, so that needs some seasoning. We are going to add some mushroom seasoning. I put 1 tablespoon of mushroom seasoning. I'm going to put another tablespoon of all-purpose seasoning. I'm going to do another bit of spice again. Cayenne pepper, half a teaspoon. Once again, we would like some spice. And we're going to add some garlic powder in there, about a teaspoon of garlic powder. And then another teaspoon of paprika for the smokiness. Once again. Now let's mix it together. That is good. That is very good. Maybe a little bit more seasoning salt. I would say another teaspoon of that. I think that will get it there. Basically, you want to taste till it gets to where you need it to be. Very good. That is good. That is where we need it to be. Let's start off by putting the broccoli in. Not the cauliflower, just the broccoli. The cauliflower, I want to blanch it first. Normally what I do while the pasta is still boiling, I typically will blanch it at that time, but this time I forgot to do it. It makes it go faster. But sometimes you forget, you miss a step. And then you gotta go back and right your wrongs. Now I'm just putting the pasta into the cheese sauce. We're mixing everything together. Mixing everything together. A lot of space in here, but then that's boiling somewhat. That's boiling enough. We just want to make this get a little bit softer.
So then you put in both the broccoli and the cauliflower in there at the same time?
Just whatever residual broccoli is in there. My goal is really just to not have the broccoli in there.
The cauliflower would have boiled.
Yeah, with the pasta.
So you would have boiled the pasta and the cauliflower at the same time?
In the last 2 minutes. In the last, usually last 2 minutes of the pasta boiling, I typically put it in there, but I didn't do that this time.
Got it. Okay.
But I didn't do that. So now I gotta boil it for just 2 minutes on its own.
All right.
If you want things to move faster, that's a way to save time.
It's a little hack.
Is to blanch it all at one time. We gotta salt this water a little bit, because that's probably a tablespoon, just so that the vegetables have some seasoning. So I just want this to get a little bit softer, so you're not eating just raw cauliflower. So we're almost done here. We just need to add the cauliflower. Then we're gonna be done. I'm gonna add the rest of this pasta water so it can loosen things up a little bit. Maybe a little bit of it. Just to loosen things up a bit. Give this a little bit of taste, just to see what the flavor is like when things are combined. Very good. Very, very good. And the next steps is that we're gonna add it to these pans. All right, let's strain that out. All right, strain the vegetables and then add it. Add it here. Tricky, tricky, tricky. We're piling up. Need a bigger pan. So right now I'm just mixing, and then I'm gonna just transfer all this to a pan because it ain't fitting. It's about to be tricky. Try not to make a mess while I'm at it. I usually just make one serving, but this is actually like serve like 10 people. And you'll have like a ton of leftovers.
Now, as you're doing this, somebody might look at this and say, can I make jollof rice for Thanksgiving?
Of course.
Okay, this one's a
Absolutely.
plant-based Thanksgiving.
Yes, we do it.
All right.
We do it every year.
So rice is not in this recipe, but if you want to include rice, you can include rice. Next question, which is even the more important question, is if you are the only plant-based person in the family and the family members come over and they're not plant-based and they want to eat a turkey, what do you do?
I usually, I mean, if they want a turkey, I make them a turkey, or sometimes somebody in the family volunteers, you know, to do it because, you know, I haven't made a turkey in a very long time. You don't want to ask the person who doesn't make meat all year to make a meat. But if someone wants it, then a lot of times I'll buy the turkey and let them cook it, or I'll cook it if they would like me to. But yeah, because the goal, I mean, the holidays is for the family, so you accommodate the people that are your guests. You know, we don't eat it. I let them taste it and let me know how it is. But yeah, accommodate your family. Don't be crazy.
I agree. Are we going to eat turkey as plant-based folks? No, we're not going to eat it. But at the same time, people don't want to be told what to do. That's just human nature. So the best thing you can do is instead of telling them what to do, you just lead by example. You just eat your Mushroom Wellington or whatever that you have that's plant-based, make that. And then if they want it, then they'll try it. And then if they like it, they're like, wow, you know, this is not as bad as I thought. And then next thing you know, they're gonna start converting and transitioning to a more plant-based lifestyle. And that's how it is. So you don't want to like force everybody.
Yeah, don't force people to do stuff.
You know, force people to do things. Like that's not the way to go.
So now we're adding some ooey gooiness.
Wait, what is that?
So we're adding the mozzarella cheese. So I told you there's 3 cheeses. We only used 2 so far. So now we're adding the 3rd cheese, which is the mozzarella. And this is a very meltable cheese that adds a little bit of gooiness to your mac and cheese. You know, add a little bit of that. There you go. So now you got a little bit of melty cheese. That's done. I'm just gonna pop it in the oven to melt for a little bit, but otherwise it's done. For now, the moment you've been waiting for, the assembly of the Wellington. All right, so here we have the piece number 1. So usually this is puff pastry. Usually it comes with 2 in a pack. So here we're gonna roll out the puff pastry on our non-stick Silky Mat here. And basically this is gonna look like a giant meat pie, but there's no meat in it. And then now we're gonna start off by getting some of this here. So let's go in this direction. So we're gonna create a base here. So this is kind of where the Wellington will lay. So you just want to create a layer at the bottom here before you add the mushrooms next. So you have a layer. All right, it's gonna be a big Wellington because we got to feed a lot of people. All right, so that's step 1. Now you're gonna layer on the mushrooms. 4 of them on there. All right, and then now we put another layer on top. So you see it like it encases the mushroom. The mushrooms is like your middle piece of all of this. So you want to use your hands. You know, it's hard to do this just without your hands. So you want to use your hands to get in there and create this like encasement of the pastry. You can try to even things out a little bit. I'll bring a little bit over there. When people make Wellington, this is just a big slab of beef. But instead of a big slab of beef, we have a big pile of mushrooms and chestnuts and walnuts and lentils. So a lot of different plant-based materials in here that provide a lot of good protein and fiber for your happy holiday. Then you're gonna add your second piece to go over the top. And basically you have basically a giant meat pie. So probably need to spread this out a little bit. I'm just gonna roll it out a little bit so it can be big enough. All right. I'm gonna stretch it a little bit so it can make it meet the ends here. All right. So now everything's encased. Okay. And you don't need this much excess at the edge, so you can cut off this extra part. Don't cut your Silky Mat. Don't do this at home. You see how I'm lifting because I don't cut my baking mat, because you can cut into it, so it is cuttable, and you don't want to ruin your Silky Mat. So I'm just lifting it and cutting it, some of this excess. All right, so now you've kind of pushed the edges together. You want to take a fork and kind of fork the edge.
And why are you forking the edge?
Just for design and just to kind of compress the edges together. So it kind of gives you that meat pie vibe. So it helps to bring the edges together better. Okay, so here you want to decide how you want to do this, but at this point you can decide you can make like a design. So some people add flowers, some people may want to just make some like crisscross, but you just want to decorate your pastry. So you have this extra, you don't want to waste this delicious pastry. So you might want to make a little crisscross design, keep it simple, but it adds to the excitement. So you might want to do something like that. Good. So you're going to compress that together. So you're going to anchor the edges. That keeps it down. So right now I'm just poking some holes in it so that when it puffs up, it has some room to kind of air out. So I'm just creating some holes here. So then you want to take some plant-based milk. You want to then spread. That creates some glossiness in the pastry. It's almost like an egg wash, but we call this milk wash. So we don't eat eggs. So instead of using eggs, we use milk. So this allows you to create a beautiful finish. So this needs to go in the oven at 400 degrees for 40 minutes. Let's put it down here. All right, and then we're gonna pop our mac and cheese in the oven. It probably only needs like maybe 5-10 minutes. We just want the cheese to melt. So first we're gonna do 5 minutes for the mac and cheese, so remember to get it out. And then we'll add 35 minutes for the Wellington. So we're gonna use the rest of this for our other Wellington, which we'll make at another time because our guests are gonna be here soon. We wanna kind of get a move on. Then our oven's getting full, so we don't have room to put 2 Wellingtons in there. So 5 minutes have passed, but as you can see, it hasn't quite melted yet. So we're gonna let it go for a little bit longer. I'm taking this out and I'm gonna cover it up so the cheese can melt a little bit better. All right. All right, so now we're gonna make some dessert. So we're gonna actually make 2 different types of puff pastry here. One is gonna be blueberry, one's gonna be apple. Just because we have a lot of fruits that we need to get rid of. So these are the blueberries. So there we have a pack of blueberries. This is 6 ounces. 6 ounces, so we're gonna put 2 6-ounce packs. I've already rinsed this out. 6-ounce packs of blueberries. We're gonna put a lemon. So now we're gonna squeeze some lemon over a strainer so we don't get any seeds in there. So it helps, instead of picking the seeds out, it helps you to collect the seeds. And then you're gonna pour juice of 1 lemon into your blueberry mixture. Then you can add a little bit of cinnamon. Add a little bit of cinnamon there, about half a teaspoon of cinnamon, not a lot. So you're gonna add a 1/3 cup of sweetness to balance out with the sourness. This is agave. This is a really quick dessert. Quick. So we're gonna take the mac and cheese out and set it aside and let the puff pastry continue. The mac and cheese has been in here for maybe about 10 minutes. We did 5 minutes and did a second round of 5 minutes. So the Wellington needs about 30 more minutes to be finished. So, because we only had it cooked for about 10 minutes here. So this is cornstarch. Putting a tablespoon of cornstarch. And that's helps to soak up the moisture. And also helps to just thicken things up a bit. So when it cooks, things thicken up. Let's give it a little taste. Ooh, that's delicious. Ooh. This is just very good. Really, we're just gonna assemble at this point. We wipe this counter down. All right. I told you it's easy. We're not gonna make life difficult. So now we're opening up another puff pastry here. So now, since we're making 2 different dessert puff pastries, 1 pack has 2 sheets in there. So this has been sitting out for a few hours. At least you need to let it sit out for at least about 2 hours to defrost. Now you're gonna roll it out, mending the seams so it can be smooth because it comes bent, creased. So you're mending out those creases. All right, so now you're gonna get your blueberries that have been soaked in here. Gonna get that out, and you're basically just dumping that right out. Don't lose any blueberries. And you're just basically just gonna pile it on in the middle there. Pile it towards the middle. Try to create somewhat of a single layer, but you're gonna roll in these edges so all the goodness is going to be in the center. So I like to get a little bit of juice in there, but not too much. I don't want it to be soggy, but I want it to be, so the juiciness part will thicken up when you start cooking it. Okay, so now you're just rolling the edges here. All right, so that's your blueberry galette number 1. All right, so I'm just going to cut these apples. I'm gonna cut the core out of it. So usually big knives are kind of difficult when you're trying to core an apple. So I typically use a smaller knife or a paring knife to cut the middle part out. All right. So now we're just cutting our apples. So I just rinsed out the remaining juices from the blueberry galette. You don't have to do that, but I'm doing that just to show you in case you want to make an apple one by itself. So I'm just going to start fresh with the ingredients. So you want to get all the apples that you cut into your bowl. All right, separate them out nicely. So these are just 3 apples. Fuji apples are fine. I usually, I tend to get either Fuji apples, Honeycrisp, or Gala. They just taste really good. They have a nice crunch. So right now I'm just cutting a lemon, and I'm doing the same exact process that I did with the blueberry, where I'm just getting the juice of 1 lemon, squeezing it out over a strainer in order to catch all the seeds so it doesn't end up in my dessert. All right, so we got all the juices out. Pour that over your apples. Then you also want to get your 1/3 cup of sweetener. All right. And then you're gonna add your cinnamon, which is about a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then you're gonna do a tablespoon of cornstarch. Quick dessert. People will be here soon. You wanna get the stuff in the oven. So, all right. And then you wanna mix. And you want to mix. That's the formula for any galette. You if you want to make a raspberry version, this is it. That's the formula. Something sweet, something sour, and cinnamon with fruit. Then the cornstarch for thickening. You want to give it a little taste. That is what we came for. All right, puff pastry number 2. You want to roll that out? We're gonna try to put both of these on one pan if we can, because we're running out of space in our oven. And we want to see if we can optimize the space. Okay, let's get our apples in the middle. Let's mix our apples one more time so all the juices from the bottom comes to the top. Smells so good. So then we're gonna dump it out in the middle. Same process we did with the blueberry. These are just so easy to make. I'm not a baker, but I do these because they're super easy. And you get some fruit in your diet. We dumped it out in the middle. Now we're gonna just style it, move it around. We're gonna add some juices, some more of them juices into this, but right now we're just gonna style first. Get them to where we want it to be. So they kind of look better when they're red side up. As far as styling, right now we're just styling the apples. All right, let's fold these in. Okay, let's get this on here before we glaze. Booyah! So now we got 2 desserts on one mat. Very good. All right, and then now we're gonna do our glaze. So this is our almond milk glaze that creates that little shiny edge. I need to have a seat. That's fine. Almost done. So nobody likes ashy dessert. So this helps it to take the ashiness, if you want to think about it like that. Take the ashiness away. Because, you know, the puff pastry comes ashy. You know, the flour is what makes it look ashy. So we're adding this to add some glossiness to the dessert. Okay, very good. And a little bit of this juiciness, we will add a little bit of this juiciness to the apple. So that will thicken up while it's in the oven and create a little bit more juiciness to the pastry while it's in there. All right, so now we're gonna put it in the oven at 400 degrees for 25 minutes. So as you can see, the Wellington is almost ready to come out. So we're gonna take that out in about 4 minutes. All right, so right now I'm just timing the remainder of the desserts, and I'm just putting it on for about 20 more minutes. So let's transfer this puff pastry. So we can be able to cut it when we're ready. I'm gonna transfer it here. Okay, so that's the Wellington.
A few moments later.
So now the dessert has been cooking for about 25 minutes, so we're gonna get it out of the oven. All right, looks great. And let that cool down.
We're finally here. Thanksgiving. Got the beef Wellington. Sorry, not beef Wellington. Sorry, mushroom Wellington. My fault. I'm saying the wrong thing. Mac cheese with the cauliflower and obviously the puff pastry. Go ahead and quickly do a taste test and see how this tastes.
All right.
So, really good.
All right.
This is the mushroom Wellington.
Very good.
Definitely what you need if you're plant-based and you want to, what am I speaking? Go ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, this is great. Great for Thanksgiving. So if you don't want to eat a big turkey in the middle, you can do your little mushroom Wellington in the middle and then have your plant-based mac and cheese with the cauliflower and then quick dessert. So we can taste it now, but you know, we've made these before on the channel.
Yep. This what is this called?
It's a blueberry galette.
The galette. I always call it the Gillette. Like
that's fine. Yeah, you can call it like a Gillette. I don't care. Deep throat.
You stop clowning me when I be eating. Always clowning me. You gonna close? I guess.
Are you gonna close out?
I'm gonna close it out. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is the moment of life. Thank God for joining us. We're gonna be gone for the holidays, so this will be our last video for this season. So you guys enjoy yourselves. Next time we probably film, you'll be at a different location because we're moving next week. So see y'all. And we see y'all.
See ya.
And where's Beloved? Where's the dog at? Beloved. Come on. There you go, Beloved.
Not over the food.
There you go, Beloved. You want some macaroni? And some mac and cheese. There we go. Boom. All right, so y'all take care.